Welcome to Home in Ticino. I'm Christopher Horskamp.
And I am Eliana Beccegato.
And we're here to help you discover the wonderful world of real estate in our beautiful canton of Ticino.
Are you ready?
Let's go. Welcome back to Ticino. Today, we're going on another road trip. Where are we going today? Well, we're going to check out Sottoceneri, or the area below the Ceneri mountain.
Mountains?
Yes.
Lake?
Yes.
Shopping?
Actually, yes.
City?
Oh, yes. There is one main motorway that goes through this area, and we will take it down, passing Lugano, Mendrisiotto, and all the way to the main border city with Italy, Chiasso. We will have a nice long stopover in Lugano, Ticino's biggest city, and look at its geography, a little of its history, and many points of interest. And in the Mendrisiotto area, we will discover how industry, shopping, and wine have historically come together. So, grab your water bottle, put on your sunglasses, and hop in the car. We're going for a ride. We are once again on the A2 motorway, this time heading south of Bellinzona. If you remember from the last episode, this area is called Sottoceneri, which literally means all the parts of Ticino above Monte Ceneri. First we passed by Giubiasco, then Camorino, where the main office for motor vehicles is located for the canton. If you need a driver's license, or to register a vehicle, including boats, or if you need to have your vehicle inspected, this is the place. Down the mountain, you can see San Antonino, and we also passed the municipality of Catanazzo. In this zone, you can actually find some nice properties at a lower rate than many other places in the area. But there's a trade-off. According to an article in the Corriere del Ticino from January 2025, Catanazzo is the 10th least sunny place in Switzerland because of its orientation with the mountains and solar path. Actually, the population has been rising in the years, and the locals find ways to enjoy this little quirk of their reality. Taking a quote from the article, and I'm translating it here, the cold has the advantage of preserving things for a long time, including real estate prices. End quote. The area is strategic, and there is a nice social fabric. As for the sun, locals will tell you that you get used to it, but you have to be prepared. Oh, and of course, as you may have guessed, just to my left, we have Eliana, who's expertly navigating us to all the places we will visit today.
Hi, everyone.
We are ascending Monte Ceneri from the north to the south. After going through a short tunnel at the top, the first town we pass through is Rivera, and you will definitely notice the large structure of the Splash Spa Tamaro. This is an aqua park with slides, heated pools, some even going outdoors, a wave pool, and a spa. Just adjacent is the Monte Tamaro cable car that takes you up to, well, you may have guessed, Monte Tamaro. It's hard to miss. The cable car actually traverses above the motorway. On top of the mountain, you can find a restaurant, a coaster bob sledding track, flying fox or zip line, whatever you want to call it. There's an adventure park, and it's also a great starting point for mountain biking down the mountain or for a spectacular hike across the mountain ridge to Monte Lema, with panoramic views of lakes Lugano and Maggiore. From here, we are officially entering the Sottoceneri side of Ticino, so below the Ceneri mountain. And just for your reference, 85% of the land in Ticino is considered Sottoceneri, but it only has 43% of the population. So working our way down, it becomes considerably more population dense. So why do we make a big deal about Sottoceneri and Sottoceneri? Well, it's effectively the only mountain pass that divides the major towns and cities in Ticino. There really is a psychological barrier for many living here. Anecdotally, some people living in Lugano will even say that Milan feels closer than Bellinzona, even though Bellinzona is only 20 minutes away by train and Milan is an hour and a quarter. And if I can be honest, I've even felt it sometimes. And I can't say with any certainty for the cultural reasoning for this, But there is a geologic difference. Remarkably, Monteceneri is actually on the peri-Adriatic seam or fault that divides the Adriatic plate, which was part of the African plate, and the Eurasian plate. Yeah, right? This is where two geologic plates meet. And so this also helps us understand why we go from full-on Alps in the north to pre-Alps, specifically the Lugano pre-Alps, to the south. This has other implications, of course, even as to what building materials have been available in the different parts of the canton. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Oh, and it's only 20 minutes by train from Bellinzona to Lugano? Well, we know that the Swiss are quite adept at making tunnels. So in 2020, we celebrated the opening of the 15-kilometer-long Ceneri Base Tunnel, which has brought the canton closer together, at least logistically. Okay, we will pass through a few towns, possibly to revisit in future episodes. But in less than 10 minutes, we are already passing the North Highway exit to Lugano. We'll stay on the highway though. From here, to the right of the highway, we see a corridor between the towns of Manno and Bioggio. This area is a pretty big business hub, and we see the commercial headquarters of major computer brands, fashion brands, pharmaceuticals, and banking software, amongst many other industries, including startup incubators. As the highway increases in elevation, you can see the Lugano airport down to the right, in an area called Agno. Up until the COVID-19 pandemic, it had regular commercial flights to Zurich and Geneva. However, now it primarily hosts private jets, private planes, a flight school, a flying club, and some limited freight. If you ever get the chance to fly into Lugano, you will notice the incredibly steep descent at an angle of 6.65 degrees, as opposed to the standard approach of 3 degrees. The commercially available Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 even has Lugano as a landing challenge. Just beyond the airport, you will find that Agno has a nice lido, or lake beach, with events in the summer evenings. If you followed the lake that way, you'd pass Magliazzo, Caslano, and arrive at Ponte Tresa, a relatively frequented border crossing into Italy. It's also the location of where Lake Lugano empties into the river Tresa as it winds 13 kilometers downhill into Lake Maggiore in Luino. Ponte Tresa is known for a few things. For the locals here in the Lugano area, some people go grocery shopping. Others may go to restaurants there. The prices can be more advantageous for those on a strict budget, though some just go for a larger selection of Italian products. If you do go, though, remember that you have to declare what you buy on your way back in, and really make sure you check the limits of what you can bring, or you risk a fine and/or confiscation of what you bought. Ponte Tresa is also known for being the end of the line for the Ferrovie Lugano-Ponte Tresa line, a meter-gauge train line that runs from, well, Lugano to Ponte Tresa. It leaves from Ponte Tresa, past Caslano, past Magliazzo, past Agno, past the airport, past Bioggio in that commerce area, over the A2, which you might have noticed, and now the track runs right next to us on the left as we continue up this hill. Oh, and some cute facts about this train. The old train had big round headlights, white in the front and red in the back. Historically, it had a smile painted between the eyes, making an adorable face. Due to its small nature, the locals call it the Trenino, or Little Train. Now that train has been replaced, but on the front of the new train, they kept a small smile painted on the front next to its considerably smaller new headlights. And a little piece of trivia for you. The old Trenino cars are in Antananarivo, Madagascar, with plans for it to be used for tourism around the capital. Okay, the exit for Lugano Sud is coming up. It's right after this tunnel under Collina d'Oro.
You have to be ready to exit. It's easy to miss.
Okay, the highway puts us here in Pambio Noranco. If we hang a right, we go to Grancia, one of the bigger shopping areas and the location of Ticino's IKEA. Pretty convenient if you're buying a place around here. We are going to head left towards Lugano instead. Look just ahead, you can finally see the lake. The Swiss know how to make a nice reveal, right? The road we are on now is Via Giuseppe Cattori, and it ends at a stoplight on the border of Lugano and the municipality of Paradiso. Across from us now is an embarcadero, or port for the Lake Lugano Navigation Company, that offers sightseeing cruises around the lake. Hanging a left here, we can go along the lake for a bit.
Should we park at LAC?
Good idea. LAC stands for Lugano Arte e Cultura. It's a cultural center that showcases dance, theater, concerts, and various events. The Orchestra della Svizzera Italiana is the resident orchestra here. The Museo di Arte della Svizzera Italiana, or MASI Lugano, has one of its venues within the building. It also has the historical venue of Palazzo Reale in the town center. It offers a rich exhibition program that spans the history of art from the great masters of early modernism to contemporary works. Shows have been dedicated, for example, to Calder, Magritte, and Picasso, and many others have passed through here in group shows like Dali, Le Corbusier, Giacometti, Warhol, and Miro. The museum also holds art-related events and educational activities. A large part of its collection is deposited in vaults under the building, and we're parking right next to it. The building juts out with its green marble face pointing towards the lake. It's just over a decade old, but continues to grow as a cultural center for the city. And from here, we can face the lake and orient ourselves. We are looking due east, which is awesome because even though it's still morning, we can feel the warmth of the sun greeting us. To the left, we see a conical mountain. If you look closely, you can even find funicular tracks curving up the side. This is Monte Bre and houses some of the more affluent areas in Lugano, such as Castagnola and Caserate at the base, and further up Ruvigliana. Keep in mind we're in Switzerland. Affluent is quite a relative term. The TPL bus line, which is the main bus line of Lugano, has buses that even go to the top of Monte Bre, and there are little blue Italian buses that will take the road hugging Monte Bre and the lake on the way past Gandria, past the Italian border there, and continues to the easternmost point of Lake Lugano at Porlezza. Actually, if you continued past Porlezza, you can follow a road all the way to Menaggio on the shore of Lake Como, just across from Bellagio. Bellagio is actually accessible by ferry or a long drive from there. And Gandria. We won't go there today, but it's quite a little gem of Lugano. If you've ever heard of Cinque Terre in Italy, it's like our own little version. There's a parking area, but the village itself only has footpaths and staircases. It's one of the quietest places around, a peaceful haven. Who lives there? Many different types of people, but I've met many artists who love being close to the lake. There's also a sense of community in the area, as it is a village that's not as accessible as most places. Okay, so that was Monte Bre and beyond. If you look to your right, you see another mountain with funicular tracks. This is Monte San Salvatore. From this side, we see Paradiso at its base. Yeah, the town we passed before. Paradiso is an up-and-coming municipality that is administratively independent of the city of Lugano. You can take the funicular from right next door to the city hall all the way up to the top for gelato, a nice dinner, or for an orchestral concert at sunrise.
It's really wonderful.
Paradiso is an interesting place for real estate. Just over a decade ago, it had numerous old hotels and a lot of older charm, but it felt a bit run down too. In the years since, a few good quality hotels have arrived, and construction began on many modern apartment buildings and businesses. The place is growing so fast, in part due to some benefits compared to Lugano. Paradiso is constantly working to revitalize the area along the lake with parks and palm trees. I have a feeling in another decade, the area will be unrecognizable.
It's true.
Luxury apartments, 5-star hotel, panoramic park, a lido on the lake with a pool, special events, a big fountain that looks like Geneva's. Paradiso has a lot to offer its residents. Okay, let's walk a bit. The building adjacent to Lac is full of history. First, we walk through what was a Franciscan convent. Much of it was secularized in the 1800s and turned into a luxury hotel, which only the facade remains, and luxury apartments and stores are now standing here in the Grand Palace. A 3-room apartment here at 200 square meters will set you back around 6.4 million Swiss francs, and the prices tend to go up from there. But don't worry, if this place is out of your price range, our podcast will take you to a lot of different areas for everyone's needs. Today, we're just getting an idea. And here, a diamond in the rough, the Chiesa di Santa Maria degli Angeli, or Church of St. Mary and the Angels, is adjoined to the right side of the structure. Let's go inside. Construction started in 1499, and it was consecrated in 1515. In front of you, you can see the most famous Renaissance fresco in Switzerland. The Passion of the Christ, encompassing the entire wall, was created by Bernardino Luini. There is also a well-preserved Last Supper fresco on the left wall. Bernardino Luini was a very well-respected northern Italian painter from Leonardo's circle and was said to have worked with him directly. Let's step back outside. What piazza is this?
Piazza Luini, of course.
Makes sense. And yes, here we will go due north up Via Nassa. You may have heard of it in that it is the street for luxury stores. Watches and fashion, apartments above, on the lakeside with lake view, ultra luxury apartments with luxury price tags. On Via Nassa, you can also start to see different real estate companies with images of properties in their windows, some showing these or other apartments, houses, and villas. There's even one here on the corner of the historic Hotel Walter al Lac. Of course, we're arriving to the center of the city, to Piazza della Riforma or Piazza Riforma. Here we have the beautiful City Hall. I'm sure you can already smell food in the air as the entire piazza is full of restaurants and bars and banks. But that's Switzerland for you. The city center is often alive with events, especially in the summer when we have the Long Lake Festival, often with blues music, busker events, street food, etc. The main road along the lake, or Lungo Lago as we refer to it, is often closed to vehicles. There can be pop-up events ranging from extreme mountain biking, car shows, Harley days, pop-up dance floors for tango and swing. There's a lot, and every year it changes a bit. In the winter, it's home to a large Christmas tree that they bring in by helicopter, and Christmas markets that can last for weeks with joyful outdoor reveling. That being said, it's also good to know that the city is very alive, and there can be traffic. When Lungo Lago is closed, the other streets can be busy. And Lugano is not immune to morning and evening rush hours either, with a considerable influx of workers from just over the Italian borders. And it makes sense. For Ticino, Lugano is population dense. We have approximately 830 people per square kilometer, similar to Locarno, although Locarno is smaller. But in Bellinzona, we're actually looking at a density of 260 people per square kilometer. Let's keep things in perspective though. Zurich has a density of upwards of 5,000 people per square kilometer. Let's walk past the adjacent Piazza Manzoni and walk along the lake a bit more to the east. Picturesque, On the sidewalk next to the lake, there are red benches everywhere, across from different shops and restaurants. To the left here, you can see Casino Lugano, a nice place with a discotheque, restaurants, a lounge, and of course a casino. It was actually built in 2002 on the site of the Kursaal Theater. If you want a cool piece of trivia, this is where they hosted the first Eurovision Song Contest in 1956. And Switzerland won. As we keep along this route, you hear the sound of the motor traffic has dropped down. We have entered Parco Ciani, the city's biggest park. Up ahead, you can see a sandy beach where locals often jump in the water, all year round, even when the water is just a few degrees Celsius. This is the mouth of the Cassarate River, called the Foce, where the river empties into the lake. Swimmers should beware as there are natural lake hazards and no lifeguard. The Lido of Lugano is usually a safer bet. Why did I bring you to the river? It helps us divide the city into parts a bit easier. The other side of the Cassarate River is called, surprise, surprise, Castagnola Cassarate. Up the river a bit, we find the University of Lugano, called the Università della Svizzera Italiana, and the new building that it shares with SUPSI, or the University of Applied Sciences and Arts of Southern Switzerland. Further ahead on the left, we have the Molino Nuovo neighborhood that stretches all the way to the hockey stadium, the new soccer stadium, and the movie theater. Molino Nuovo has a more blue-collar feel, and it houses numerous exceptional dive bars. Directly across the river from Molino Nuovo, you will find Viganello and Pregasona a bit further north. Further north of that, we see other areas that would be worth exploring, maybe another time. See, the mountains tend to form a sort of bowl here, starting with Monte Bre, as we saw before, its neighbor Monte Bolia, with a green field on top, past the Denti della Vecchia, or Teeth of the Old Woman, all the way to Monte Bar in the north. Tucked just under these mountains, you'll find many villages from Tesserete all the way up to the valley in Ponte Capriasca. Up that way, things can get a bit hillier and quieter than you would find in the city. Oh, and remember the last episode I mentioned the Carnevale di Bellinzona? A week later every year, the Carnevale di Tesserete finishes off the carnival season for the entire canton. This town, of just over 1,500 people, is overrun with more than 10,000 revelers. Let's walk back to the car, but I want to mention a few other things that might interest you. Just outside the city center of Lugano, a 5 to 10 minute walk north from the Piazza Riforma where we were before, you will find Pensilina, the city's main bus station, also called Lugano Centro. A 5-minute walk from the Piazza Riforma to the west will take you to a small funicular station that will take you to the Lugano railway station. From there, you can take the Swiss Federal Railway north to Bellinzona, Zurich, Basel, or many other towns. Or you can take it south to Chiasso, Monza, and Milano, or even to Malpensa Airport, the closest large international airport to Lugano. And of course, just across the street you can find the FLP station of the Lugano Ponte Tresa line, or the Trenino we discussed before. We're almost to the car, and there's still a bit more to see today, but I will also mention an area that tends to interest expats. Many are drawn to the municipalities of Sorengo, Muzzano, Montagnola, Collina d'Oro, and Gentilino. These areas are a bit more affluent even for Swiss standards, as the properties are prized by expats, in part due to their proximity of TASIS, or the American School in Switzerland, in Collina d'Oro, and Franklin University Switzerland, a private university institute in Sorengo, with expensive fees but small class sizes. There's a large English-speaking expat community in Lugano, and many live in these municipalities, as they've made a base in Switzerland for their children to go to school under American curricula. So it's time to get back in the car. But if you were thinking to yourself, this town Lugano has a lot of different neighborhoods, it's because it does. Lugano used to be a much smaller city. It had its different neighborhoods, or quartieri. But between 1972 and 2013, Lugano merged with many surrounding municipalities, increasing the city's surface area by more than 530%. Today, the city of Lugano has 21 neighborhoods and covers an area of 75.8 square kilometers. Okay, we're back on the road heading south along the lake. We passed Paradiso, with Monte San Salvatore on the right side of the car and the lake on the left. In Melite, we will get back to the A2 highway. If we had more time, we'd pass through Melite and go to Morcote, one of the most picturesque places on Lake Lugano. It's a great place for a panoramic dinner or even just a gelato, but the road is very narrow, so take your time if you go back there. In Morcote, you can also spend time in the amazing Parco Scherer, known as the Garden of Wonders. It was created by Arturo Scherer, a textile merchant, passionate traveler, and lover of art and culture. This park monument hosts a rich collection of artworks from various countries and historical periods, surrounded by lush vegetation. In 1965, Scherer's widow donated the park to the municipality of Morcote with the express wish that it be open to the public. It's been preserved as originally conceived by the Scherer family, with additional embellishments making it a magnificent venue for highly successful cultural and artistic events. Also, properties are quite expensive and not always available if you're there to buy. We are now on the causeway, a mostly natural barrier that divides the upper basin and lower basin of Lake Lugano. There's only a narrow area that the water actually passes through between them. This highway, the smaller road next to us, and the train lines all utilize this small strip of land. And up ahead to the right, do you see Lake Lugano coming to an end? This town is Capolago, or head of the lake. Here, you can actually take a cog railway all the way up to the top of Monte Generoso with an exceptional view. On a good day, you can even see the famous Matterhorn and Jungfrau. The wild thing here is that you actually see Italy flatten out as the Lombardy region stretches to the south. If the lake has ended, that means we are in the Mendrisio district, or Mendrisiotto. And you can see the highway splitting. Look to the left. That's Foxtown, a giant mall of outlet factory stores and a casino. There is a steady flow of fashion tourists, both local and foreign, who come to this mall for deals on high-level and luxury brands. And to gamble. It's hard to miss from the highway. A bit gaudy, if you ask me, but you can find some good prices on quality clothes. The Mendrisio region, as you've noticed, has some industry, and many of them benefit from the proximity to Italy for their workforces. In the mornings, these roads from Italy can be quite full of cross-border workers, and also in the evening heading back. Mendrisio itself, however, is known for
Vino, precisely Ticino Merlot.
Exactly. You can find vineyards scattered all around Mendrisiotto. And in the historic district of Mendrisio, every year in September, there's a celebration of wine called
Sagra dell'Uva.
It's one of the most important events in the district, where courtyards become small restaurants with delicious local dishes. If we were to go to the right, we would head to the border town of Stabio, or we could switch back to Monte San Giorgio with one of the best views of Lake Lugano. But it's also famous for having one of the most important fossil deposits in the world. We are specifically talking about the Middle Triassic period, so between 247 and 237 million years ago. Paleontologists have been finding fossils here since 1850. Fossils include reptiles, fish, mollusks, insects, and terrestrial plants. Now we see this mountain with an elevation of just over 1,000 meters tall. But we need to imagine at one point it was at the bottom of a shallow sea with islands of sand all around it. Okay, keeping on, these are the last towns we see in Mendrisiotto. We pass through Balerna and near Vacallo. Property prices are often considerably lower here than compared to Lugano, but as you can imagine, a lot depends on the property itself. And lastly, we have arrived at the end of the road today. Let's pull over here.
Okay, welcome to Chiasso.
We are in the most significant border town in Italian Switzerland and the 5th largest municipality in Ticino by population. Chiasso has a train station, a huge rail yard, and a ton of banks. If we continued across the border, the next major town we would find, Como, Italy. But this is the Home in Ticino podcast, so we will stay here for today and grab a gelato. Chiasso is well connected to Milan and Lugano by the Tilo or the Treni Regionali Ticino-Lombardia. Oh, and a fun piece of trivia. Chiasso actually means noise, as in a loud noise in Italian. We can pause and laugh that the last Swiss town next to Italy is called Noise. Not entirely sure why, but all the way back in 1146, long before it was part of Switzerland, it was called Clasio and Clasio Tabernarium, referring to the number of eating and drinking establishments in the area. In truth, though, it doesn't really seem louder than any other city in Ticino. So we will leave you here. We hope you've enjoyed the second installment of a whirlwind trip through Ticino. Since we've covered Sottoceneri and now Sottoceneri, soon we will take you back to Sottoceneri through Lugano, Ascona, and their valleys on our last road trip. From there, you will know enough about Ticino on a macro level that we can start to explore detailed information about specific areas. But for now,
Enjoy your gelato.
and the noise. For more information on this subject, check out our website www.homeinticino.com or even the Italian version www.casainticino.com and take a look at the links that are available. And with that, we close this episode of Home in Ticino. We'd like to thank you for joining us and look forward to being with you in future episodes, including a road trip to Locarno, Ascona, and their beautiful valleys.
If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you follow us.
Yes, we're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast services so you can listen to new episodes as they come out. Every village and every house has a story, and we're happy to help you discover them.
So, until the next episode,
Remember, you're at home with us in Ticino.